Good evening, I am Ibrahim Sani and this is Market Talk. Grundfos is the world's largest pump manufacturer with the headquarters in Denmark and managing revenues of over 3 billion euros. Joining me today is Mr. Okay Baruchu, the Group Senior Vice President and Regional MD of Grundfos Asia Pacific region. Welcome to the show, Okay.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and good evening to you and to your viewers as well.
The responsibilities that you have encompass the entire Asia-Pacific region. But before we jump into that, let's discuss a little bit about Grundfos. What is the company all about, and what have you been doing for the past, say, 100 years?
Okay. As you quite rightly started with, Grundfos is the leading manufacturer of pump and pumping solutions globally. We make some 16 million plus pumps a year. And within that range, we do pumps that are as big as your fist to as big as maybe this room that we are in. So we are in a very diverse range of applications with our pumps. And we have been a company that was founded back at the end of the Second World War in 1945. And we've been in existence for 70 years. And the 70 years that Grundfos has been there has been a big success story, I guess that's fair to say. And in the 70 years, we have constantly and continuously have been able to grow our business, come up with new products, and they've been at the forefront of leading innovation in pumping technology.
A quick research on the company shows that it was actually family owned. It was created out of a family trust. Is it still the case now, or has it been transferred to a public listed entity?
No, we are still a privately owned company, and the founder, Paul Du Jensen, before he passed away, he transferred the majority shares of the company to a foundation that he started, the Paul Du Jensen Foundation, and today 85% of our business is owned by the foundation. And then there is about 12% that's owned by the family still, and 3% by the employees, people like myself.
Okay, let's talk about the Grundfos presence here in Malaysia. As I am made to understand it, it's not an outright OEM kind of manufacturer. Could you discuss your presence here?
In Malaysia, we have been operating for more than 40-50 years, pretty much ever since the very early days of Grundfos. And it started off as a dealer-distributor kind of relationship, but in 1990, we started our own sales company in Malaysia. And then that small sales company turned into a local assembly company that was also manufacturing some of our products for the Malaysian market here. And today we are a business of about 150 million ringgits. And so again, in Malaysia, our story has been pretty much a major growth and major success story. And we manufacture and sell products to a vast array of customers, and from domestic to commercial to industrial end users, but also to public water authorities and water utility companies. So we embrace a large range of applications with a very large range of customers out there.
The embodiment of Grundfos is that it is a business that is being run by the family initially. Now it's one of the largest companies out there that is still privately owned, with revenues, like I mentioned just now, is over 3 billion euros. Then the question now is, what next for this company? Are you inculcating new forms of technology, IoT, for instance, into the development of your products and services?
That's a great question, Ibrahim. And like any sensible business out there, we are also constantly looking at reinventing ourselves and reinventing our business model, reinventing our products. And like I said, we have been pretty successful over the years with coming up innovation and new technologies that would take the pump industry a step further. And we have pioneered a lot of new products that are being copied and became industry standard out there in the whole world today. And we have no intentions of changing that policy. We would like to stay at the forefront. We would like to innovate. And also, as part of our foundation aims, we would also like to contribute to world sustainability, because that is in our DNA. Whatever we do, we would like to make a difference in people's lives and basically leave a better world to our children out there.
The responsibility that you have, the portfolio that you have, being the regional MD of Asia Pacific, this encompasses a very large economy. It also encompasses a very large population. We're talking over 1 billion people that can come directly into your products and services. But the problem here, the tricky issue here, is that many of these countries in the Asia Pacific region are at various developmental stage. How do you manage these different needs and requirements of the various markets that you operate in?
In fact, Asia Pacific, like you mentioned, is quite large and quite diverse. We have countries like Japan, Korea, Singapore, Australia in this region that are fairly well advanced in their development, as well as countries that are in the developing phase, and then some that are just starting that journey with Cambodia or Laos or Nepal or Myanmar there. And that, of course, is in some ways a bit of a challenge for the business. But again, it also helps us to balance the business in terms of the various applications that we can do with our pumps. When we're talking about a developed nation, developed country, the needs of that nation, the country, are different, because their infrastructure is already complete. So there's clean water and sanitation available for pretty much the whole population. But the needs are now more on the personal side. They want more comfort in their homes. They want instant warm water, instant heating, instant cooling. So we operate in those countries with different products and a different approach in a different segment. Whereas in a developing country, it can be the infrastructure that needs to be built first, where you need to get water to the people, clean water to the people. You need to get energy to the people, which go somewhat hand in hand. You need to bring sanitation, so wastewater, the wastewater treatment, and make sure as well in that development that you do not make the mistakes of the more developed nations of polluting your environment and then have a big issue in your lab when you are sort of in the developed phase, that you need to clean up the mess that you've built before. So we're also taking that experience and expertise that we have from the developed nations and trying to use that with the developing nations, where we try to advise them with our know-how and technology. So it keeps us quite busy and challenged at all times, which we enjoy greatly.
Which is a rather interesting point to take. So we'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss the requirements and needs of Malaysia in terms of Grundfos' services. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Market Talk. I am your host, Ibrahim Sani. Flooding is a significant and growing risk across Malaysia, with the situation predicted to get worse and more intense, rain predicted in the coming decades. Malaysia's most exposed cities risk losing up to 360 billion ringgit in combined asset losses due to floods and rising sea levels. Recently, the country saw floods in the northeastern Malaysian states of Kelantan and Terengganu in January this year, forcing almost 23,000 people to leave their homes. In light of this growing phenomenon, eco-business and Grundfos have studied the impact of climate change on the region and on Malaysia in a white paper, and we'll be discussing the findings here right now. Overall, the sustainable business practitioners across this region were found to have low confidence in their governments. So let's understand better this notion. Joining me, of course, is the Grundfos Managing Director of the regional Asia-Pacific business, Mr. OK Baruchu. So I have here the report. It says here flood controls in Southeast Asia, And it was widely reported in the press just a few weeks back regarding the findings of this. Let's go through first on the highlight of the report. What can we learn from this report?
Sure. I must say, when we started the exercise with our partner, Eco Business, we were expecting certain things. So there were some confirmations in the final report, as well as some, wow, we didn't think that the situation was as bad as this kind of findings. And if I can maybe summarize the findings into 4 main bullet points, I can say that first of all, the experts from the flood control and sustainability world in Southeast Asia that we surveyed as part of the study, predominantly, by a large majority, 70% of them said that they expect the extreme weather events to get even worse, which was somewhat of an expected outcome, because that's obvious with the global warming and everything else that's going on at the moment, where we're polluting and finishing the resources in the world faster than ever before. And the second finding was that the whole region in general, there are exceptions, of course, there like Singapore maybe, but the whole region was not at all prepared for those extreme events to hit us even more frequently than before. Also, even though Southeast Asia, with its natural resources and the developing economies, is a relatively rich, maybe is not the best word, but okay region, the outcome of the study said that there is not enough funding being channeled into this area of mitigating flood. And also the other outcome that was a little bit surprising, because we thought that there was some collaboration already in the region, that there was not enough collaboration between the governments, between the authorities, between the players in this area, in Southeast Asia in general. But the one loud and clear outcome was that it is a major issue in this part of the world.
Okay, so let's take on the actionable items derived from this report. One key thing that I have noticed is that key synchronization between the various stakeholders remain to be absent. So in this sense, who do you think should play the part of stringing together these key stakeholders and making sure that these efforts of mitigating floods can be done appropriately and accurately?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a role to play, as also the study shows, for all the different stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholders, there's of course the government angle that is the main driver for infrastructure in cities and in any country, but also the communities, us living in those cities. We have a role to play in there, together with the local authorities, so municipalities and the local water boards and waterworks companies, as well as the players like manufacturers like Grundfos, who are operating in this area. Between those 4 main stakeholders, we should also be working very closely with universities, where the next generation is coming out of, where new technology is also being developed, jointly to come up with more intelligent and more environmentally friendly solutions to flood control.
As an economic bloc, ASEAN is a rather bullish body. They want to achieve lofty targets, but on a societal level basis, we are at various starting positions. If we were in a race, you would see Malaysia, on a different position, say with Indonesia, with Vietnam, and many others. How do you think that we can actually achieve these goals of achieving economic stability when we still haven't sorted out key issues like basic water necessity, flooding mitigation issues? Mm-hmm. How do you think we can manage these various starting positions across various countries in Southeast Asia?
I think ASEAN, maybe compared to the European Union, is a slightly more loose union where the authorities are more advisory than making laws and regulations. And I think therein lies a bit of a difficulty with ASEAN, but also the opportunity, because ASEAN can come up with the main framework for all the countries involved to tell them what is the best way forward. And then each country, depending on their level of funding and development and expertise, can take a different approach or different page from that book. But there is a big role for ASEAN, I think, to play in showing the way. And like I said, the 4 or 5 stakeholders that are contributing into this debate should be closely linked with the working groups in ASEAN to make sure that technologically and system-wise, and also from a sustainability point of view, the kind of solutions that are recommended are supporting the development of the countries within that bloc.
This region has a lot of state-owned enterprises, which we don't normally see in, say, for instance, the European countries or in North America. Do you think that the government plays a critical role in trying to get this off the ground, in trying to manage the situation better?
Most definitely. The governments are a key stakeholder. In many parts of the region, as you quite rightly pointed out, the public waterworks, whether it's the clean water or the dirty water collection side, are governed by the public sector. There are countries where the private sector is also in there, but by and large, the government is controlling that side, including the flood control stations. And there, the government's taking the lead and also taking the learnings from the ASEAN working groups and then applying that to their local needs is critical. And no one flood is the same to another. Every flood situation comes with its own unique issues and challenges. And if the flood is in a rural area, the devastation that it creates and the problem that generates the flood, as well as the way to fight it, is different compared to a flood in a city, where we have maybe blocked the natural cycle of water pretty badly, where the natural cycle that was keeping the world going for so many years is not happening anymore. So we either need to find a solution to bringing that natural cycle back to our cities, or find solutions of how we can handle the excess water without, of course, having to throw it all away, because we're also suffering from no water at times,
Absolutely.
water shortages. So there's plenty of water on one hand, there's no water on the other hand. So if we can marry those two solutions, especially at the government level, where maybe authorities are somewhat separated from each other, clean water is one side, dirty water is another authority, flood control is another authority, that will go a long way in the government to bring those players together.
We'll take a short break, but when we come back, we'll discuss more on the flood mitigating factors in this country and beyond. Don't go anywhere. We're talking floods today. Joining me is Mr. Okay Barutchu, Group Senior Vice President and Regional Managing Director of Grundfos Asia Pacific Region. Okay, the situation in Malaysia is a little bit interesting, at least in my opinion, because the floods that we have, at least in the northern states of Kelantan and Terengganu, is a recurring one. In fact, it's a periodically recurring one. We know exactly when the floods are coming. Sometimes it is worse, sometimes it's less than that. But how do we break this flood cycle? Being a flood control mitigation analyst or a consultant, could you discuss with us how to end this flood situation?
I think to a large degree, we need to accept that it's a natural phenomenon. I mean, monsoon rains have been in this part of the world for thousands of years, and they're not going to go away. So we need to find a solution of managing and making the best out of that. And I think, like I said before, the governments have a vital role in bringing the various authorities regulating and managing water.
Okay, so if I can interject that, the key stakeholders are not just the government themselves, but also private businesses like yourselves, and of course private citizens like us, right? We are the end users of these kind of products. How do we compel the government to work hand in hand to achieve a better target for all of us? Do you think that businesses play a greater role in trying to influence the government in trying to get the job done?
Most definitely. I mean, and also you will see it in the report. there is a compelling evidence in there that the communities and businesses, not our own business that works in the flood control, but other businesses that are affected by the floods and they lose their livelihoods and cannot operate for a few weeks and months, they need to create that pull. And then, of course, from the government, and there needs to be some push as well, where the two will hopefully meet at some point. And I think when we launched the paper, we had some local experts from Malaysia also sitting in the panel discussing the findings with us. And one of them was the head of KL Sustainable Innovation Center, Dr. Thomas Tang. And what he said was quite crucial. He said, we need to find our way back into nature, and we need to re-establish our relationship with rivers, because rivers play a vital role. I mean, they are the natural flood mitigation solution, but also they are the natural cause of floods at times. And over the years, we have polluted our rivers, we've misused our rivers, we have blocked our rivers on both sides with construction, with buildings, and hence the natural cycle and the relationship of our people living in the cities with the river has disappeared.
This is very interesting because in India they have given rivers a legal personality, the way we do with companies. Do you think that there is a time and place for Southeast Asia to actually do the same? Give legal personalities to rivers to actually improve on us managing this natural resource?
I think you touched upon a brilliant point, and I think what India has done in this area is revolutionary and pioneering. And indeed, that could be a great solution to bringing that awareness back into our communities, and also an authority that's responsible for the rivers to make sure that the rivers stay clean, the rivers stay part of our daily life, and the people and the river ecosystem can live in harmony. And through that alone, you can actually bring a number of different solutions without major spending. But of course, on top of that, if the rainfall is too heavy, if there's a very sudden temperature drop, there's a level to what you can mitigate with the rivers and with all the other stuff that you have. So we need to also find technological solutions to complement that. And that's where us, as the players in this industry, we need to play our part in offering the right kind of solutions. But
we don't have much time left, and I know you look at Southeast Asia, you look at Asia Pacific, but could you give us some best practices that is seen in European countries? What can we learn from each other in terms of managing water better?
The one problem that I see in Southeast Asia mainly is most of our responses to floods are reactive rather than proactive. What you see in Europe now is a more proactive approach, where the people look at the big data that's available around us now and analyze the rainfall, the trend in the climate, and try to predict what's to come. And they base their solutions on that 20, 30, 50-year predictions. Whereas in Southeast Asia, with the exception of maybe a few countries, we are more reactive. Flood happens, and then we scramble trying to find a solution for the next one. And I think that mindset change will help a lot, and also it can be a self-funding scheme if you think about the damage and devastation a flood can cause. Just to give you a very live example from the study here, Southeast Asia has the largest number of cities in low-lying areas. So with the climate change and everything, Southeast Asia is one of those at risk of losing most compared to many other places. Mm-hmm. And Malaysia, KL alone, in 2070 is at risk of losing $84 billion worth of value. And if you compare replacing that value when the flood happens to what you have to invest in flood control mitigation, we're talking a very minor portion of that amount. And
the economic savings can be quite multiple-fold in this sense.
Exactly. So forward-thinking, proactive action, I think, is the key forward for all of us.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I've been speaking to Okay Barutchu, the Group Senior VP and Regional MD of Grundfos Asia Pac. That wraps up this edition of Market Talk. Send us all your feedback on all our social media platform sites, including Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there at 501 Awani. And of course, you can also listen to this interview on your podcast. Simply search for Astro Awani wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ibrahim Sani. Thank you for watching and goodbye.